Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. In lieu of a weekly show this week, we're bringing something maybe even better, a one-off, the review of the Netflix series Tour de France Unchained Season 2, brought to you by our show partner, Join Cycling. And I needed Join's adaptation or adaptability this week, as both of us are out of town, Benji, but more on that in a second. The Netflix series dropped on Tuesday, I think, like Monday night at midnight, so Tuesday. I don't know if Luke already started watching in the middle of the night. Benji, we should tell people where we are, Benji, because we're both in unfamiliar setups. You look like you're in a green screen prison. Where are you?
I'm basically in an upstairs bedroom in my parents' house because I'm staying in Belgium for the week. I had to go to Belgium to go to a launch event of Netflix, so Tour de France Unchained, which was basically riding up a mountain in Wallonia, which I got to the top. It was a pretty cool thing. They built like a 7-meter extra high thing on top of the highest point in Belgium, just so that we could ride to the highest point ever, which
is what,
Vautranche
cool. Signal or something?
Switch that around. Signal de Vautranche.
Oh, okay. And they let you into Wallonia.
Yeah. Shocking, huh?
Yeah. Okay.
Then again, I haven't roasted any Wallonian riders yet. It's usually the Flemish ones.
It's usually there's Arnaud Delis and then Phil Gill. There's Van Hills. He Flemish.
It's Flemish, I think.
Okay. Anyway, I'm in Tignes. It's freezing. It's raining outside. It's not freezing. It's like 5 degrees, so not technically freezing. There's a marmot looking at me, and he's been screaming like they're building a burrow just there, and they've been screaming the last hour. Maybe because they're watching Adam Yates and Almeida right away from everybody in Swiss. But anyway, that's where I am at the moment. It's really rainy and cold. So I've had plenty of time to watch the series, Benji. How did you do it? Like, what's your system? Do you watch it solo? You watch it with your wife? You watch one at a time? Or you just go 8 straight like an animal?
I go absolute apeshit when it's
really?
online. I'm like, ooh, episode 1 is online. And I binged it within 5 hours and a half, which basically means I barely took any breaks in between. So that was the go-to for me. Absolute no life for 5 hours straight.
I do 2 at a time, otherwise I get bored. I do try to do 2 at a time, which is still, nearly an hour and a half, 2 hours. This season, Benji, before we get into the nitty-gritty, we're going to go through all the storylines. Pidcock and Cummings, Gino Mader, did they handle that in a tasteful way? Tadej Pogacar and UAE back into the show. Alpecin's villain arc. Vaughters makes an appearance on stage 1, episode 1. There's Alaphilippe and Lefebvre. Was it even drama? And then, of course, the grand finale, the Mario and Richard Plugge beer drama, as well as how they dealt with the GC fight. We'll also talk about what's missing. There's not every stage gets coverage, particularly the sprints. Cofidis were missing, and is that a weakness of the show, or is that just an inevitability of tracking certain teams? So we'll get into all of that. But first impressions, Benji, how did you feel when you started watching it? Did you think this is... Because, you and I had some critical comments of the trailer, and I don't think they were wrong in hindsight either. What was your first impression watching this?
Honestly, I started enjoying it from the start, and it never really stopped. There were a few episodes that were great. There were a few where I was like, okay, this feels like a bit of a filler episode, but that happens every time with a TV show, and especially with a show like this that is based on true events in a race that you have to base something on. Sometimes actions in spoilers, Asgreen winning a breakaway stage. Sorry, but that feels like a last week sprint stage to me.
Yeah, I actually liked Asgreen. I really liked, I didn't know anything about him, but personality-wise, I really liked him. But yeah, it's not Netflix high drama, is it? It was just more me personally. I was like, I didn't know Casper Asgreen's like an interesting guy. I really liked him, but yeah, to your point is they wanted Alaphilippe to win the Lafay stage. That's their dream.
Yeah, and I also feel like when watching and when comparing it, when reviewing it, I tend to compare it to season 1, and there's just a few things that made season 2 better for me than season 1. First of all, we're going to talk about it pretty soon. Pogacar being in this makes it better, in my opinion. In addition to that, I feel like in season 1, I had these feelings of like, I think episode 1 was like half an episode about Stefan Bissegger, who eventually ended up crashing 17 times in that time trial on one end, that's a slightly interesting story, but I don't care too much, especially for like the number one episode that needs to hit, you know?
Yeah. And also, there was not this year, I think this year there was a higher level of assumed knowledge. Like, they did not explain how cycling works again in episode 1 or 2. They were like,
which
you
is
want
logical,
that?
eh?
Yeah, season 1 does that, and I think that, I'm not saying they should do that. They should, and but they've done it in season 1, and they sort of move on with a level of assumed knowledge. Even they explain the points competition this year instead of how GC works in grand detail or stage wins, etc. I thought it was good. I really liked the first 4 episodes. I did think it also, given them, considering the material they were given in terms of the GC fight of the last 2 years, they were given, I think, some pretty good material. I don't think they did the best job in the last 3 episodes bringing that battle to a denouement. But
what?
It's a French word. I don't really know what it means. I think it means to a climax.
I'll take it.
I don't really know.
Man's in France for 4 days and he's like, ooh, denouement.
Yeah. I thought it was actually it ended with a little bit of a whimper, actually. But I thought the first episode was really, really captivating, and I liked it. I still thought it was very, very good, and I liked it, and I would recommend to anyone to watch it. But before we get into,
watch it on French original.
Oh yes, no, that is something, and I think Box to Box Productions had to tweet that like the default option in many countries is dubbed, and then or English dubbed, and it's like no, like I don't know what the viewing habits are in America. I know in Spain, they watch everything dubbed. So
crazy.
And Germany also a lot of dubbing, I think. But in Australia, we would never ever watch anything dubbed. You would watch it with subtitles, and especially like Narcos is a good example because Narcos has a mixture of English from the American DEA guys and Spanish from the narco traffickers, and it's like 50-50, let's say. And I would say in this series it's 50-50, maybe English and 50% French or Slovenian or another language other than English. And clearly you should put it on subtitles and French original. And Box to Box had to tweet that. Because I didn't even watch that. Anyway, that's good point, Benji. Good note to the viewers. But let's do episode 1 first. We'll get into episode 1 or maybe that storyline. Pogacar's there, but Vaughters, Benji. I think he does the right thing in both seasons where he's like, I got to play up to the cameras. Now, should he be in episode 1? No, maybe not. Did Carapaz, I also think it's nice how they showed that like they invested so much money in Carapaz, he crashed out of stage 1 of the tour and you're kind of left rudderless after that. Now, is when JV's saying, this is, if he crashes, the whole team collapses. Okay, a little bit of hyperbole for the cameras. Nothing wrong with that. But it is true that, like, wow, you prepare this guy, you sign him, and then he crashes stage 1. That is a gut blow, actually. Like, I've almost forgot that.
Yeah, for sure. But I also feel like, in comparison to the Bissiger point I made earlier, this year I felt like that segment of Carapaz went through faster. We flew through that in that episode in my head, which I think that being tightly paced is a much better thing compared to last year. So that's a positive on my end. And like, there's not too much more to tell when it comes to that story. Just the preparation's there and he crashes out. But you said it indeed, Pogacar is in the show. And I do want to highlight this already because he's already present in that first part of the first episode, I think, where you see his recovery from the injury he had at LBL in 2023, him running up the stairs with the wrist thingy on his wrist. And I think Pogacar being in the show, while watching the show, I don't think I realized how much influence it had. But afterwards, then you think, okay, but this year and this season, every single GC battle was told from 2 perspectives, while Col du Granon in season 1 came from 1 perspective. And that adds that extra layer of information from another team, a bit of emotion from people that you haven't seen emotion from in season 1. I think that makes the show much better, even though while watching, I might not have realized that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes it better to have both of them there. Like with either Vingegaard or Pogacar, you don't leave the show thinking, wow, I really know a different side of him. Not really. Like there's nothing, no groundbreaking or really like, whereas Asgren, I didn't know him really. It showed a little bit different side to him. But yeah, it's just needed. It's like Verstappen had to join the show, Drive to Survive eventually. You cannot tell a GC story without Pogacar there. Otherwise, yeah, he's just this sort of third party over there to be defeated. But then I think UAE did it like they provided the footage, or they had a lot more control over the videos, maybe in the race. But then the talking heads afterwards, I didn't really notice
precedent.
I didn't really notice a difference. Like if you told me to watch it blind and I didn't know that, and say which team had control and which team didn't, I'd have to really think about it. I couldn't really notice. Maybe there's not so many scenes on the bus with UAE in the show.
Yeah, that's true. I also feel like I realized that was the case this morning when Luke told us in the WhatsApp. Obvious. So I didn't notice it in the show itself, but I do feel like it's a precedent that you set that other teams might then be like, okay, if that team can provide the footage themselves without needing Netflix to be everywhere in the bus and so forth, then why are we not allowed to do that? And the reality is because Pogacar is more important than you, but I don't think Netflix can just straight up tell that to a random team.
Yeah, I think some teams have just got to cop it. If you want to have the exposure and you want to be on Netflix, then you got to cop it. And they need the one of maybe the protagonist of the tour last year and this year. But before we get into the next topics, a word on our show partner, Join Cycling. The best part about Join Cycling for me is the adaptability. So, for example, I have to come travel this week. I don't have my bike with me. Benji's traveling as well, which we're both doing a little bit more than when we were just sedentary podcasters all the time. But that also means if I don't have the bike with me, what does that mean for my training plan? I can go into the Join Cycling app and I can just tell the app, here's my availability. I can block it out for a week. I could do it on a day-by-day basis. I can reduce the availability. Okay, I only have an hour a day to maybe do a run or a short ride. At this week, it's almost nothing. So I put that in, and then the plan, my FTP builder plan at the moment adapts perfectly. That I don't get credit for that. Of course, I'm not getting credit for not training, but I don't feel like I'm just falling off the rails and then I'm like, what now? I've ruined all my progress. It's like it's just an unavoidable thing. I put it into the app. The app recalculates. Maybe my my due date is adjusted for the finish of the plan, but we go on, and I don't feel like I've lost everything. And for me, psychologically, that's very, very important, because sometimes, I can be on a roll, and then over Christmas, family came over in December, and then I lost 4 days, and then suddenly I just stopped training for 3 weeks. I just, for whatever reason, even though I was on a good roll. But this really keeps me on track. So that is one of the main benefits of Join Cycling, is adapting to you and even planning for when you're not training and then adapting around that. So thanks, as always, to Join Cycling, our show partner. And you'll hear more on them in the coming weeks. Next week, we've got a big episode planned as well on training with Jim Lundenberg, the CEO of Join Cycling, as well as during the Tour de France. They have some special challenges and maybe surprises for you that we'll let you know about later. So a little teaser there. But Stage 1, Benji, I can't really remember how it ended. I guess who took yellow is with the Yates and Pogacar. There was no talking head with Yates. That kind of was just shown. There was no extra stuff. We saw, what about Wout? I feel like Visma have kind of jumped them a little bit, because I feel like I'd seen that Wout scene before on the bus. Have we seen that scene before?
Ooh,
in the Visma
I don't
doco?
know, actually. I don't know if we did. I can't remember that scene. You mean the scene where
Wout goes Godverdomme on the bus?
No, he doesn't say Godverdomme, my friend.
What does he
says, oh God, what? He says, what?
I don't know. I was trying to make a sound that sounded like angry.
Hoe is dat nou mogelijk? That's what he shouts.
Is that it cannot happen?
No, that means, how is that possible?
Oh, okay. I think Phillips. Okay, but I feel like I've seen that scene before, but maybe that was only in the Benelux countries with the Amazon. But Yeah, maybe, but yeah, Vingegaard then comes in and it's kind of there wasn't actually any beef, which was a little bit disappointing. Because I go, oh, maybe they're gonna be nah. Moving on to something a little bit more serious, Benji. I want to talk about it in two ways. So there's Gino Mader features more than I expected in the series. I wasn't, of course, he's relevant to the Bahrain victorious story of the Tour de France. I didn't realize Bahrain were in the 8 chosen teams originally. Maybe they were in 21 and 22. I forgot, but they were in the chosen teams, or maybe they decided to do it afterwards with Bilbao and Mohoric because Mohoric is so eloquent. But two ways. I think the way Gino Mader is used generally in the series, I think to me is a little bit distasteful and a little bit too much. I think the way Mader is part of the Bahrain Victorious Tour de France story is beautiful, and I really liked it. So it's two different things. There's stage 1 and episode 1, episode 2, where Gino, I thought a little bit much. But yeah, generally how did you feel about it?
I've got a similar feeling. On one end, you've got the in memory of Gino Mader part of the show, where you've got Bahrain trying to win races with Gino in mind, winning for Gino, riding for Gino. That storyline that's emotional, that's vulnerable, that's heartbreaking, that's rewarding when it actually pays off in a victory, if that makes sense. And that's the great part. But I agree that sometimes it came over as Gino Mader's passing being used as to bring over the point of the sport is dangerous, and that's a bit over the top for me personally. But yeah, that's just my take.
But to play advocate of the devil, it is dangerous, and what clearer way to illustrate than a young man lost his life tragically 3 weeks before the Tour de France started on a descent. So there is that counterpoint that it's not distasteful, because if you want to illustrate the dangers of the sport, which are real, to an audience, you can say this happened. But then when you pair it, this is where that's fine. You can do that. I have no problem. But then it's paired with guys being in the sprints, you got to kill each other for every place, and this is the danger. Then I was like, okay, this is now a bit too much. So I don't think it was crazy. It wasn't really, really bad where I was like, this is disgrace. I just thought, I wouldn't have done it exactly like that. But it was part of the Tour story, Gino Mader, especially for the Bahrain Victorious team. And I thought the episode with Bahrain is maybe my favorite episode of the series, actually. With Peyo, I interviewed him once, really articulate guy. And it's just really, really nice to watch that. And also Mohoric. And I also forgot Wout Poels won a stage. They didn't show that either. Kind of like his win on live TV didn't get shown on the Betex.
Yeah, that's true. By the way, just to add on to the conversation when it comes to Bahrain, they were not initially planned to be in the show, but after Gino Mader passed away into the Swiss, the storyline of building towards the Tour de France, I think that's when that decision was made. Is how I perceived it from the producer yesterday.
Okay. I mean, that's smart, to be honest. Because, they have a scene with Peyo in País Vasco surfing before the race. But yeah, the Bahrain episode, really, really liked it. I also thought I liked their bus scenes, to be honest. The way they're talking about, okay, we want to be in the break, but we don't want to be. We want to be in the break with specific people. We don't want to just be represented on Puy Dome. We want to be in the break with Peyo. Yeah, tug buddies help. Nikias aren't helping. I liked seeing the directors also of Bahrain as well. So that episode got a big tick for me. Ben O'Connor and AG2R, Benji. This is we're talking about Pogacar already. We're talking about Vingegaard. The protagonists of the show are Julien Jourdi, Vincent Levernu, and Ben O'Connor. What is going on here? How many episodes were they in? What percentage of screen time are they in?
I think they're in 6 episodes, which is a lot in an 8-episode show. Yes. They're definitely in the first 3. I think they're in episode 5 as well. And eventually we turn back to Felix Gall again later on. So I think they're in about 6 episodes. I think if you count the minutes that Ben O'Connor is on screen, he's probably the most on screen of any rider in the race.
Yeah.
Which, the thing is, I've got multiple sides to this.
Okay.
On one end, I think AG2R's in the show too much.
Facts. They are in the show way too much relative to their interest to people and their performance in the tour. It's just way, way, way too much.
Fully agree. There's too much Julien Jourdi. There's too much Lavenu, even for me, even though he wasn't actually the biggest one of the three. When it comes to O'Connor, I did like the parts of his storyline. I do like that you see a rider across multiple episodes to see their evolution throughout the race. Because I like the character development in the show when it comes to Ben O'Connor, as in starting as leader, going to breakaway rider, then domestiquing for Felix Gall, then going to breakaway rider. I like that travel you go with Ben O'Connor, but still, I think they could have done that in less screen time when it comes to O'Connor. On the Felix Gall side, I think it's good that you show him, but there were a few weird things with Felix Gall. The whole Ben O'Connor Hindley drama on Marie Blanc stage, it wasn't mentioned that Decathlon, well, AG2R was riding in that breakaway because Gall was in that breakaway. And on another episode, there was some audio editing like they had in Drive to Survive. To be clear, I did not notice this. My wife did when she watched it, so she should probably
be on the pod, Benji. Talia should be guest star. She probably notices everything in this season.
just like a podcast with your wife and my wife, and we're just gone.
And some of the wives here.
We could take a holiday on the third week of the tour and they just take over. Now, on a serious note, when it comes to what she noticed was the Puy de Dôme stage. Before that stage, Felix Gall was not in the top 10 yet. And in that stage, neither. It was later in the race that he ended up being in the top 10. And in the audio, the DS from AG2R was saying to Felix Gall, Felix, you're eighth now. I think they cut that audio from a later stage and they put that on that part, which I think it's okay because it's not influential for the viewing experience. But I did miss the Gall part in the Marie Blanc stage, if that makes sense, because that adds to the explanation of why they're pacing in the first place.
To be clear, AG2R, in my opinion, did absolutely nothing wrong on the Marie Blanc stage. You have a chance with Gall, who was flying in Swiss 2 weeks before. You have a chance to win a Tour de France stage. Did they maybe pull a little bit too much? Should they have been putting guys in moves? Should Berthet have been jumping to make Hindley close? Okay, maybe. But also, I also remember Bora doing a really good job with Buchmann and Hindley because they were getting attacked in the valleys. I remember because, we wouldn't. I think Van Aert jumped ahead, or it was not like everybody just rode to the base of Marie Blanc happy to let Jai Hindley win the stage. Maybe it turned into that way. I think INEOS paced. I can't remember, but I don't remember thinking AG2R really fucked up tactically here. I don't think so. Maybe even Gold drops Hindley in a different year. So but yeah, there's just like the pressure. It was I think they used O'Connor to show what pressure does to the athletes and how they can sometimes respond in different ways, sometimes badly to the pressure. It was over too many episodes, I guess. I think you could have done just one AG2R at the start and then done a redemption arc on Col de la Loze where he pulled for Gall, and that would have been probably enough. But Jourdi is good on. Like, you got to also admit, Benji, like, they're better on camera. Ben, they're given more drama on camera. Ben, Jourdi, and Lavenu than Grisha and Neiman and Vingegaard.
For sure.
So it's like, it's also, this is an entertainment show. We can't be like, well, Vingegaard and Pogacar, they are the best riders, so they should be on screen proportional to their time they were on screen in the race.
And last year, I vividly remember saying that I really liked Jourdi being in the show. So maybe it's a reaction to last year from the producers that they were like, okay, people love AG2R part in season 1. Maybe we'll do that again for season 2, but a bit more expansive.
I would have liked, I got no problem again with having more French teams in. I would have liked take out the extra AG2R episode, and this is where what they missed, Benji, add in Cédric Vasseur and Vincent Lefay. Victor Lefay. Not Vincent Lavenu. Victor Lefay and Cédric Vasseur. Because also I reckon they could have given you some good quotes. I reckon Cédric Vasseur could have given you some good quotes, and Lefay.
And Cofidis would have happily been in the show, right?
Yeah. What, if you think Netflix asked Victor Lefay and Cédric Vasseur, do you have a day to do a post-race interviews and we make it look like you're always in the show, you think they're going to say no? Come on.
Of course they will. And
so,
that's also a point I have when it comes to the show. The one thing that I now can remember that is missing in the show is Victor Lafayette's victory is not emotional in the show for me. In real life, it was emotional, and that is because there's no...
It was crazy. Cofidis
you don't know.
Sucked in the Tour for like 10 years.
And for the mainstream public, Victor Lafayette was unknown in the first stage. He just showed up.
And he's with Poggy and Vingegaard on Cote de Piquet. Yeah, it was a huge thing. So, yeah, I thought he could have had some juice, but that's just the nature of pre-selecting, right? It's also... Yeah. But that is the difference to Drive to Survive. They have all the teams, right? And all the drivers. Yeah. The 20 drivers in the 10 teams.
Advocate of the devil, that's also the nature of the sport, unfortunately. You can't do 22
you can't
teams.
do Intermarché, you can't do Total, you can't do all of them either. It's just impossible with, 20 teams at the Tour de France. But yeah, I was surprised to see, I would say the Hindley drama and the drama between Jody, Lavenu and O'Connor was probably the biggest drama of the season as well. Yeah. And but also, you know who gets away scot-free, Benji? You know who's paid well on that team who gets away scot-free?
Oh God, I'm trying to go through
who was at the Tour de France?
Has he left the team since?
No, he got an extension.
I do not remember who you're talking about.
Benoit Cosnefroy.
He was in that team. I don't know. Do you remember?
Exactly. And it's like, he did the Tour, no? Yeah, he did. And so he kind of gets away a bit scot-free. But anyway, that is what it is. Other topics, Benji, other things you liked, maybe Alpecin's villain arc. Yeah. Maybe go through that for us.
We got to talk about the Alpecin villain arc. Obviously, when it comes to the 2023 Tour de France, there was the fact that they had the best sprinter, which is Jasper Philipsen, and the best lead out, which is Mathieu van der Poel. That's a fact. But the other fact is that they also sprinted dangerously in multiple sprints, or the dangerous maneuvers in the lead out, which caused Van der Poel to be relegated, Philipsen to not be relegated, but he probably should have been a few times, or at least once in the race.
He gave the elbow to Jakobsen,
for example.
Luke is still angry about it.
I can hear him fuming outside of the mute button. But well, about that whole thing, you've got both sides, and the importance in showing this into the France Unchained for me was the balance between the two. Is there a nice balance between the two? And I think the show perfectly delivered that episode. That is my favorite episode, because
the Alpecin one
in real life, when it comes to the Tour de France in real life, I don't like it when riders elbow, when they deviated dangerously. But for the sake of a TV show, I love drama. I love this shit. I need a villain arc in a TV show. And you've got kind of the good side and the bad side of both, the light and the dark side of Alpecin. And I think that episode was absolute perfection in that sense. You've got the arrogance of Philipsen in moments, like saying shit like, we're not here to make friends. Or, for example, Mathieu van der Poel saying, I have no clue how much the fine is, the team paid it. Or when Jasper Philipsen said, it's worth it to sacrifice Van der Poel with a relegation if it gives us a stage win. Like, I love that in this show.
Yeah, and they could have even done more with if you gave a 20-second flash interview to Pascal Encorn after stage 18 and see what he thought of Jasper Philipsen. But that one was just, there is no embellished drama there. Netflix did not create a fake storyline here. They accurately portrayed what happened in the Tour, and then they put the cameras on the Alpecin guys, and they did their thing on camera. And I was thinking,
I love it.
Hell, like the camera, they know the Netflix cameras are there, and they're like, yeah, what? Like Christoph Rudolph, he's my favorite character in both seasons. Christoph Rudolph, I think he's the GOAT. Like he's
so like calculated, robotic, but like in a funny way.
I think he's got a good sense of humor. I actually like Rudolph, even though of course he's like, win, I don't care, you get there. Because I don't think he cares about being liked. He really doesn't. And then Van der Poel also actually doesn't really seem to care, because he he's like, yeah, pay the fine, whatever. Philipsen, I think he actually will say all that, act like he did on
He
the
cares.
bike, and then he will then care, oh, why don't people like me? It's like, dude, you're an asshole. All tour. Like, and then
Yeah.
in the behind the scenes on Netflix to camera, you said, yeah, I was being an asshole. Like, it's so people aren't going to like that very much. I will say, like, are they wrong, Benji? Because then when you include the quotes from like Lefebvre is saying, yeah, this is how it is. You're gonna, for a Tour de France stage, fight every inch and you got to kill each other. And then can he then complain when Jakobsen cops an elbow in the ribs and goes down?
Well, if it is the case, it shouldn't be like that. That's my take on this. Like,
Yeah, I agree with you.
and it's kind of when people say, oh, there's sprint deviations like this in every single stage, you need to relegate everyone then. That's just not true. That's just factually incorrect. And that's a defense people use when they can't handle someone being relegated for something they did wrong because they like that rider over other riders. And let's be honest about it. Lefebvre will be angry if a deviation happens against his own riders, but if Jakobsen does it, he will be like, nothing went wrong, like Sam Bennett in the Vuelta a few years ago.
Yeah, this is sprinting.
The day I got banned by Quickstep on Twitter, remember?
I don't remember. You've been banned by too many teams on Twitter. Astana,
No,
Quickstep.
Hey, I've been unbanned by everybody now.
Really?
Yeah. Even Astana, shocking. It cost me a friendly relationship with Nico Vinokourov Jr. to make it happen, but
yeah, but the Vino boys are nice.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, I've lost it. No, I've remembered. I actually think it's a massive credit to Netflix that they, out of everybody, have teased out the absolute absurdity of the current sprint rules and their application.
Yes.
That the Netflix series, which is an entertainment product, so clearly portrayed and demonstrated. You have Van der Poel laughing on camera about getting a fine, and they're like, and then Christoph's like, we pay the fines, some of them, and you know, like and then it's like, well, fuck, like Gumstad did it the other week in the lead out for Christoph. This is no sanction, and UCI is bringing the yellow card system, so they are, I think, trying to address it, and I think that is a good thing. We'll do a separate episode or about latest news later.
There's a long story about that,
but it is interesting that, or I think, credit to Netflix that they actually really showed that absurdity and problem with the application of the rules. I actually think Van Aert comes across very well in the where he says, if they stamped their foot on stage 3, and relegated Philipsen, and I don't think he did it, call me biased or whatever, but I don't think he sounded whiny like he cost me the win. No, he's just saying if you stamped it out there, maybe the rest of the tour, the sprints would have been a little bit safer.
Of course, the one thing I want to add there is that with that stage 3, it's not just Philipsen that's in the wrong there for me. It's also ASO that plans a sprint stage that has a corner in the last 200 meters, which according to the UCI guidelines for route creation is not allowed in the first place. So I think there's two things to point. Obviously, an ASO funded, no, not ASO funded, but like a Netflix show about an ASO race is probably not going to point at that specific thing. And it also wouldn't need to necessarily fit in the episode's story, I think. So I'm okay with the angle they took, but something else about Alpecin, or can I continue to the INEOS episode?
Oh, no, I just think, it is also interesting seeing, how hungry these guys are, that like Philipsen was furious in the third week that he didn't get to go for the sprint. Like they're still, they got that winning mentality. It is interesting seeing
and
he was fucking furious.
And the quote that the two quotes. First of all, Philipsen that said, you can win as many races and then you're on top, but once you lose a race, you're nothing. And then another quote by Pidcock in the INEOS episode that I do want to talk about. I think that was a quote of, you're only as good as your last race, which is also an interesting quote, which I don't necessarily agree with, because you can have a bad day in life, not necessarily representing your current form, but it's an interesting quote for sure. But about that, INEOS episode?
Yeah, INEOS.
While the Alpecin episode was very natural and came over very realistic.
We knew it was coming.
when it comes to the INEOS episode, I feel like there's a few things in this episode. First of all, there's basically a drama that is being represented between Pidcock, Rodriguez, and Cummings, the INEOS trifecta in this episode.
Yeah.
Pidcock is going for GC. Rodriguez is going for GC. Rodriguez is a very nice guy in the show that I want to get out of the way first. And it's the relationship between Cummings and Pidcock and how Pidcock is being able to handle potentially having to work for Rodriguez because Rodriguez is doing better in GC. There's a moment where Cummings says into the camera that, we didn't really see it coming, that Rodriguez would do better in GC than Pidcock. And that sounds incredibly realistic to me, to the point that it sounds scripted.
Does it? He was contracted to Movistar at this point because they didn't think he was that good.
I agree with you, but they can't be that stupid.
No, I agree. I think, halfway through the tour, I don't think it's a surprise to Cummings that Carlos Rodriguez is riding a good GC.
Yeah, and I think another part to that is then the whole story part where Cummings goes to Pidcock at the massage table to ask whether he would be okay, or to kind of present the idea of whether he would be okay for riding with Rodriguez if it's necessary. I don't know if this is misrepresented, but it's being represented as being after like one of the earlier stages. And I looked at the exact stage, and he was only 1 minute behind Rodriguez, both in the top 10. If that actually happened, if Cummings went to Pidcock at that point already, that's early for me.
I want to go on a full Pidcock defense rant here. Now listen, I don't doubt that maybe there's been issues but yeah, sorry, okay. Yeah.
To assist your point, the point that a lot of people are creating and that I had a small feeling of while watching is that Pidcock would come over as entitled towards being able to ride for GC, which I think in the situation that Cummings came to the table is fine, but go on the defense rant.
Okay, let's do some context. Thomas Pidcock, he's early 20s, what is he? 24. They've given him a contract till the end of 2027. He's won on Alpe d'Huez the year before. He is not given that contract to just go in breakaways and win stages. That's not the vision, I assume. I assume the vision is Tour de France GC. He is prepared for the Tour with that objective, I assume. They're going to the Tour and he gets to go for GC. Carlos is also there. Carlos can also go for GC. Pidcock in 23. In Swiss, in Swiss, he wasn't that good, but then he's second in Liège, third in Amstel, and you're sort of hoping like this is the generational talent that can sort of do it anyway. He goes to the Tour. Stage 1 and 2, he's all right. Stage 1, not that good, but he's fourth on stage 2 and he attacked as well, and Van Aert spent a bullet closing him. He then goes to Lorraine, good on Lorraine, I would say, like pretty solid. Maybe lost 19 seconds to Rodriguez, and then on the Tourmalet stage, he was like pretty solid as well. Finished like 1 second behind Adam Yates. Yeah, but yeah, Carlos gapped him again. Puy de Dôme, which is not shown, he drops Rodriguez on Puy de Dôme. The last mountaintop finish before Grand Colombier drops him. Not by much, but does gap him. Then, Hindley is in third. The goal is the podium. Okay? Hindley is in third by 1 minute 42 ahead of Carlos, and he looks way better than Rodriguez. Pidcock, after stage 12, is a minute behind Carlos. He's closer to Rodriguez than Rodriguez is to Hindley. So yeah, Pidcock's in 8th, but he's, I would say up to that point, doing a pretty good tour. Pretty good. It is no way at the point where you tell the guy with the context I just said about the contract and the vision, there's no way you can tell him at that moment, I don't think, to throw it all away for a guy sitting in 4th who also got dropped by Pidcock on stage 9. Secondly, strategically, it also doesn't make sense. Strategically, the way I would see to beat Hindley is you use Pidcock to do some crazy descent on a climb to put Hindley under pressure in week 3 or something. Now that doesn't end up happening, but that's why when they go to him and he's like, that could be scripted. For context, it could be completely scripted, but when they go to Pidcock and they say, you're going to have to sacrifice for Rodriguez, he's kind of like, I'm not sure about that. Like, what do you mean? He was kind of taken off guard. So you're crying, Benji. To my
That's very
defense,
true.
I
Sorry, I
bring
was
you to tears.
perishing. I was perishing because I was coughing.
I just made Benji cry. Just such a good defense of Tom Pidcock's character. But I don't, and
it was amazing.
Caveat: it could be completely scripted. I do not believe there is any problem between Carlos Rodriguez and Tom Pidcock. I also do not believe that Carlos Rodriguez before Grand Colombier banged his hand on the table and said,
"Mate,
we go for me." There is no way. So it is a bit scripted.
If anything, Carlos Rodriguez is probably too nice within a team atmosphere. Is how he looks. He looks like that that teddy bear that kind of won't necessarily dare yet because he's still a young rider to hammer that table and be like Thomas and say, I don't want this guy in the breakaway. I need this guy to ride for me, whatever, stuff like that. That I don't see Carlos Rodriguez doing necessarily. And I fully agree with your defense. Like, it's as simple as that. It's too early for that. And that's also the take I have on the INEOS thing. And I feel like that's why when I was watching, Stephen Cummings came over slightly poorly in the way it was represented because of situations like that. I don't remember too much else when it comes to the INEOS episode, to be honest.
Well, it kind of soured the Kwiato win. Because Kwiatkowski also won on that stage. I call Carlos Rodriguez,
I didn't remember it.
Oscar De La Hoya. He's Oscar De La Hoya of cycling, the golden boy.
Who the hell is Oscar De La Hoya?
He was like a American boxer. But he had like, he never had any like cuts on his face or anything, or like he didn't look like a boxer, He didn't speak like a boxer, and then you put him in the ring and boom, boom.
Only loads of brain damage.
Him and Calzaghe and Mayweather, I love that period of boxing. All right. I think I'm going to give INEOS a little bit of benefit of the doubt and say that bit was a little bit embellished, but also Netflix did not create Cummings telling Pidcock to wait in the radio on the car. That also did happen.
Yeah.
So on stage 13. And then, listen, in the end, Pidcock completely collapsed on stage 14. So, but yeah, they also, I think Gary McQuaid on Twitter said that they didn't show Pidcock waiting for Rodriguez on stage 20 to help him stay 5th after he crashed. So,
yeah, but at that point, it's obvious, who needs to do what? So I also think that's on the other side.
There's not much credit there because it's like, come on, you have to.
Yeah, if he doesn't do it there, then it would be fucking stupid. So
yeah.
It's only the most logical thing. It's the bare minimum.
Yeah. Alaphilippe and Lefebvre's drama, to be honest, we can do this quickly. I don't think there was much. They mentioned the contract. It sounded like a spicy quote. Quickstep seemed like a pretty happy family to me, frankly. They were like stressed about not winning a stage, but it seemed like did not seem toxic whatsoever.
It was before the blow up we had at the start of this year, because the whole quote about Marion Rousse from Lefebvre, I think that's way worse than anything that happened before in that whole discussion. So
because Alaphilippe knows he's getting paid a lot, he wants to perform. I
agree. There was not much drama there. There was quite a bit of drama when it comes to Madio and Plugge, but before we get there, Asgreen Mohoric episode felt like a filler episode to me. I already said it. It's kind of like that. The last sprint stage on stage 19 in a Grand Tour, everybody's like, oh, why is there a bloody sprint stage here? That's how that episode felt. I enjoyed parts of that episode. Like, obviously, the Mohoric interview I enjoy hearing, but I also, is it weird to say that it didn't hit as hard for me in the show because it felt over-edited?
Well, they cut it into 20%, and they didn't show,
and the angles changed a bit.
Yeah.
And it's not as raw,
Yeah. Like, that interview was incredible. Might have even been the highest viewed video I had of the tour last year, just about, on a random transition stage.
Yeah.
Not complaining. So, yeah, that was an incredible interview, and people outside of cycling also saw that interview. That broke through a little bit outside of cycling. I think, Benji, I agree, that episode should have had, I feel like they missed the jabs and tight battle and the inching towards Vingegaard from Pogacar in week 2.
Yeah.
and how tight that battle was, how they didn't leave, Vingegaard didn't leave his wheel. They followed each other from start of the stage to the end of the stage. Pogacar attacks on Juplin. It looks like he's going to take yellow. They didn't even show the attack on Juplin. They showed the sprint that got blocked by the motor. They did not show Pogacar gapping Vingegaard and Vingegaard coming back. I feel like they should have built up 14 and 15 a bit better before the TT.
Yeah. I see that, and I think the whole thing about that discussion is when it comes to the balance of showing GC, it's as if they have episodic arcs about certain riders, and then a few story arcs that cross across the entire season, like the Ben O'Connor one, but also the GC battle. And because it's so spread out, I feel like it might simmer down the emotion at certain moments. And I agree that the show didn't convey the evolution of how the race went, where yes, Pogacar had that bad day on Muddy Blanc, but then the day after Pogacar fought back, that was included. But then after that, there was kind of this moment of the race where for the first 2 weeks, or the first 10, 12 stages, whatever, there was the upper hand when it comes to Pogacar due to his explosivity, and Vingegaard tried to respond to those and then kind of blew up on Coulthard, kind of is how I felt. And then it kind of built towards Visma trying to reduce that explosivity by hard pacing climbs throughout the races. Maybe that's just a bit too tactical, and maybe we just want that because we love cycling tactics.
Oh, but I think there was a villain arc to do there as well. You could do, I would have prefaced like 14, Pinot is jumping in the brake, and Visma look like they're chasing him and shutting down the brake when they're pacing. And you could have done that. That's all. You can preface the bad blood later in week 3 with that. Like, there's also some narratives you could use with it, because Visma were not letting any brake go on 14. And they were pacing. So, Demarchi, get him on front of camera. He'll let you know. But yeah, it's onto the sort of the finale of the season, Benji, where there's the Ben O'Connor redemption arc with helping Gal on the Col de la Loze stage, and you see how much it means to Age Desert to win not just a stage, but indeed the Queen stage. And that's nice. I enjoyed that part of the episode. But then I think these two topics are kind of intertwined in the show, which is Vingegaard's stratospheric stage 16 TT, and then the doping speculation, and then the beer comment from Richard Plugge and Madio's response. There's like a linear, these are all tied together. And they showed the TT from Vingegaard actually quite early, because really that's the end of the tour. And they show that on episode 7 or 6, I can't remember, third last episode. And so that was kind of, that was where I feel like that was the denouement, or the big crescendo, and then came down a bit. But how do you denouement? Just that's my word of the week. Probably heard someone say it in a supermarket. I'm like, denouement. How did you feel about the TT episode, whatever it was, 6 or 7?
Well, first of all, the fact that Pogacar is part of that storyline adds to the display of that. We've had the discussion already, but it really hits in that TT episode for me, especially in the first 5 to 10 minutes, when it's actually about the TT, both with talking about the preparation towards that time trial and the events that are happening during that time trial. And then it transitions after the time trial into, that was a crazy good performance, with some uncomfort in parts of the peloton and in parts of the public. They show Twitter messages. I'm happy that none of mine showed up, but it was that transition. What, sorry?
Did you defame him?
I don't remember.
Oh yeah, I don't think you slandered him.
But there's this like gradual transition into that, which I enjoyed that, because it's like how it works in real life. Every time there's a super insane performance from a cyclist, we had the same discussions after Planche de Belfier. We have the same discussion when it comes to this time trial. It's every few years that there's this one performance where everybody's like, holy shit, what just happened? And you got the good side of what just happened, you got the bad side of what just happened, where it's due to the history of the sport, people start to question, is what is happening real? And I like that the show delved into that. It didn't delve super deep, which I don't really expect the show to do, but it displayed that not everybody was comfortable with the situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that was the reality, that there was, especially on Twitter or in the French press, like doubts cast on that performance. And it's the same. I remember I was doing a stream after Poggy won on Planche de Belfi, and I just shut the stream down because the live chat was just polluted. Like I couldn't talk about the stage.
Fair.
And so it's sort of, Vingegaard unfortunately has to bear the brunt of it, but that's because he's the Tour de France winner. And it really wouldn't matter if it was him. It wouldn't matter if he was doing 5 watts per kilo like Froome or Wiggins. It wouldn't matter if who it was.
I somewhat agree, I somewhat disagree. As in,
the watts were still high.
It's a difference compared to the rest that makes it. It the discussion it was. So if it's 5 watts per kilo, that discussion would probably not have been there. Unless the others were 4 watts per kilo.
You're talking about 2011 cycling, 2012 cycling.
Damn it, that's 11. Shut up.
Hey, Cadell, he won before any British rider won the Tour, no? Or no? Was Wiggins the first British guy to win the Tour?
I think he was.
Aussie's got 1 year in. Ashes this year. Stay tuned for LRCP Ashes pods.
Basically a Brit anyway, huh?
Oh. Yeah, kind of.
I'm making so many enemies. I shouldn't. I'm sorry, Australians. I'm sorry.
My Irish family wouldn't be too happy about that. But I've lost my train of thought. Do I think the whole Tour de France winning episode should have been about a doping discussion? No, personally. I was surprised to see so much. Do I think, in a way, Netflix tried to use it as a way to say, this discussion happened? It did. It happened in the press. And then you have Steve Chanel with the AB sample tubes on the table, and he's saying they're tested more than everybody else. I think they're trying to, in a way, they're expecting that the casual audience has this perception, very unfairly, in my opinion. The casual audience has this perception from the past of the sport. And they do. The cyclists, and they do. We said many times, you go to speak to someone on the street, Tour de France, they're all doping. They're all doping.
To a Belgian friture, every conversation I have there ends up with, they're all doping anyway. So that's the mainstream feedback.
They're trying to say that discussion is happening, and then they're creating it and then responding to it by saying they're tested more than, and I don't know who it was, some other writers in the interviews, talking heads were like, we get tested more. No, it's Matteo even. I think Matteo said they don't talk about it in other sports. We're the only sport that talks about it.
And I think that's a fair argument.
It's true. Like, man, people are going to watch the Olympics this year and they'll watch the running events and they'll be clueless. And it's like, go onto Twitter and go to the Athletics Integrity Unit Twitter and look at how much has been posted the last 2 weeks. It is fucking insane. Like, okay, you want to talk about but
the fact that those other sports have that doesn't mean that people aren't allowed to question the sport of cycling, which also has a history when it comes to doping.
If there was a Netflix series about the Champions League finals, from quarterfinals to semifinals to finals, would, after the winning goal is scored by Pep Guardiola's Manchester City, would Netflix spend half that episode about that? The answer is very, very clearly no.
But I don't think that's the fault of the show. I think that's the nature that our sport is in compared to the sport of football, where that is not a topic of discussion every single day. While in cycling, doping is a topic of discussion on a regular basis. So I also found the amount of time that they spend on it actually good. I like that they spend this much on it. And it having spent on that also runs into the Madio versus Plugge drama, which it kind of sets that up as well. And I just think they took the angles well in the doping speculation. Of course, then you start over analyzing the response of every single team manager that's on screen. They went over every team manager, like Roodhoofd spoke about. I would have loved to hear Gianetti's take during that segment, but that's just my personal opinion.
I would have liked to have seen. Yeah, I would have liked to have seen Poggy ask the question about the TT.
Well, it won't happen because that is footage made by UAE.
Do they even do the talking head afterwards?
But I don't know.
Mm.
That's how the news was presented.
Yeah. But yeah, and as well when like Madouas says there's no truth in cycling as he cut that from elsewhere, maybe Madouas is straight up like, nope, don't believe it. I don't know. The way it was cut seems to be that way. But yeah, it was certainly a topic of discussion last year. I think maybe a little bit too much in the show, but
I'm
anyway,
okay with it.
We move on to what it set up, which was what I didn't know, that Richard Plugge, he appears mainly talking about the beer gate, and he says that he did it to draw attention away from Jonas because he knew after the TT that would be the point of discussion, and to sort of shift the focus almost to bring the ire of the world onto him. And then we see Madio's reaction.
If I gotta be honest, like, we'll talk about Madio versus Plugge in a second, but about the Plugge brings that idea forward during the Tour de France last year to deviate from the discussion doping speculation around Jonas Vingegaard. I think from a PR perspective, that's on one side clever to do that. On the other side, maybe unfair towards the team you're talking about. That's also my opinion. On the other hand, to me, it's very dumb to then a year later say that is why you did that in a TV show. And basically, like, it's like as if he's proud of saying that, but now it kind of backfires because now everybody knows, Plugge tried to deviate away from the doping discussion last year. That's the weird part, coming out with that this year.
I think he was doing it to try and he even said to say it was not personal to France and Groupama FDJ as a proxy of France and Thibaut Pinot as a proxy of France. I think he was saying, so you literally, like, I think he was trying to, make it not say it was not personal to them. Now, listen, he did say French team. He could have said, there are teams I have seen when I have been at races in the past who
exactly.
We were at the hotel, I saw a French team, and I think the journos did the rest by the powers of deduction of who shared the hotel. I think I got a little bit upset and thought it was sad. Like, it really affected Marc Madiot. And like, he really, really, really took it hard. And that made me a bit upset.
Because I always have personally this feeling of like, people can criticize me, but if they criticize my friends to hurt me or something, I don't like that. Those people don't deserve that. I feel like Madiot has that feeling of, you can attack me. He said that. You can attack me, but don't attack my riders who do put the work in.
Yeah.
Because to Madiot, it felt like Plugge was discrediting the hard work that his riders did. And I think that's a fair take to have when it comes to Madiot in this show. But in the end, like, I'll be honest, whatever happens when it comes to drama in this show, if you put Madiot versus Plugge on TV to try and discuss it, Madiot will always win in an on-screen display of things because he's got on-screen charisma, and I'll be honest, Richard does not.
I think it's just like, I like seeing the two antagonistic personalities. You've got the like emotional, I really like the paired head to head. I think it works really, really well. When they cut between the two, it's like, it is entertaining.
The antagonist part of the teams, I think, went too far in this discussion. As in, on one end, you have Visma like the scientific team being represented, and Groupama FDJ is kind of being represented as they only work on panache. But let's be honest about it. Without any science in that team, Kung wouldn't be doing as decent ETs as he has been. They wouldn't have the young talent in their team as they have in the team. So I feel like they were... It's weird because Madiot is saying it himself, but it's as if it was too extreme when it comes to Groupama, because they're not just a puddle that... That's a weird fucking expression. They're not just a puddle. What am I trying to say?
And
you know what I mean?
They're not Bannockhook.
That's not what I meant. I mean, like, they also have some science in the team. It's in my opinion below Visma Lease bike, but it's not like it's Conti level.
No, they're not working at like an amateur level. Like they're a good team. But yeah, I just thought it was sad that like it was supposed to be Pinot's goodbye, and Pinot sort of saying goodbye, and Madio still has it on his mind. You know, it clearly like, and it is also true, Benji. Like riders do drink beer during Grand Tours. That is also true. Like we cannot. I also think that if you want to come on camera and say, I don't know about that TT, we'll see what the samples say in 20 years, the truth always comes out. Well, if you're going to say that, then if your riders are drinking beer on the rest day, not saying his or whatever, but there are riders that drink beer during Grand Tours, that's just it's a proxy for maybe a varying tiers of professionalism. Do not be surprised if people come back. Clap back.
Yeah, but I don't like those two being represented against each other. As in, I think it's perfectly all right for people to question the biggest performances in the sport that are stratospheric compared to the usual performances. And on the other side, it's fine to say, oh, a team shouldn't necessarily maybe drinking alcohol during stages will hinder your performance. That's also fine. Maybe it works as motivation for a viewer. I don't know, like. There's also a human side to the sport in that aspect. I do not necessarily believe in that when it comes to alcohol, but it's like those don't need to be as opposed as they were in real life. And that's not a criticism to the show, as in real life.
So you mean they position Visma as like in the words of Mario, like the Germanic, like cutthroat data, Germanic, like data, boom, boom, boom. And then inversely, they kind of positioned Groupama as if never working in a scientific way, as if doing everything on feeling, and that's not true.
Hobbits.
That's not true. Like they also work at a high level, and they have Madouas, Gregoire, Lenny performing at a very good level. So they scout young guys really well, and their development team is one of the best in the world. Like they just produce pithy.
I do think that Groupama has often made mistakes by making decisions based on emotions.
Yes, so that is
in
also
terms of
true.
Team rosters.
Yeah. Or Pinot, even like the irony of that Markstein stage was he should have stayed with Barguil and Pidcock longer. And instead, on the second last climb, he said, I'm going to go full panache mode.
Yes, but as a consequence, he gets combativity. You've got the cool moments in Virage Pinot.
I reckon winning the stage would be better.
As a fan of the sport, I'd rather see that moment. He wouldn't have won the stage anyway, in my opinion.
Probably not. Probably not. But yeah, that's sort of how the series ends, which is that was like the final of it. I guess it was the most appetizing form of beef and drama, so it made sense to hold it to the last episode. But that's how the season finished. I don't think. Oh yeah.
I think Champs-Élysées being the final stage hinders the first two seasons, and I think next season will be better in the final because GC will actually end at the end of the race on the time trial.
Because Champs-Élysées, they're like, oh yeah, by the way, here's Johnny Mayes. You've never seen him before. He wins the stage. And they were like, who the fuck's Johnny Mayes? And to be honest, I was also, when I saw the sprint, I was like, Johnny Mayes? Where have you been for 3 weeks? So maybe it did capture reality. But yeah, you're right. Like it's Champs-Élysées is a strange way to finish a sports event, isn't it? When you think about it. So yeah, this TT, if it's close like, this year. Whew.
It's like when I'm trying to make a video of climbing a mountain, it's pretty silly if the second half of that mountain is flat. And the first half is the hardest part. Because you've got your climax in the middle of the video. That's how it feels in this series.
And that's what I meant with saying like they did the TT early and then it's like, okay, but the race is finished now. Last year, we've gone for an hour, Benji. We've clearly talked about it, felt about it a lot. You know, I wouldn't say we're casual watchers of cycling. I would say maybe like above average in terms of watching cycling. And if we've got this much to talk about the show, clearly it's hitting on some stuff. So it's clearly successful. I think you cannot deny that. And also that it's an enjoyable piece of entertainment. I also cannot deny that. I enjoyed watching every episode.
But before we finish off with like a rating compared to season 1, I don't really remember season 1. Let's talk the public as well. Shush it. Shush it. We're asking the people for their opinion.
No. For last year, I think we gave
it
it a 7.
Okay, fair. When it comes to your opinion on the show, if you think it was good, bad, what's your favorite episode? What's your worst episode? What characters did you like the most? Were you most shocked by when it comes to personality in the show? Drop all that stuff in the comment section. If you disagree with us on points, drop it in there as well. We want to hear all your opinions on something like this because it's just an opinion of 2 people here. And like we just said, we're watching this from the glasses of people that analyze cycling for a living. But that's not the case for necessarily everybody. And there's different people with different perspectives on the sport, whether you're a mainstream viewer, whether you only watch the Tour de France, whether you watch half of the calendar, whether you are a fanatic fan from a certain team and feel like they've been unfairly treated. We want your takes in the comments.
For sure. I really want to hear, especially, characters, your favorite quote. What's one thing you learned from the series that you made you sit up and be like, wow, I didn't know that, or wow, I didn't know that was happening behind the scenes. And that's what I want.
Did you have that?
Yeah, so one thing, it was the INEOS thing. I think for sure they wound up the drama way more than it was. I don't think Carlos and Pidcock were having beef on the second rest day. No way. But I did not know that happened at all. I also don't know that Ben was furious after stage 5. I did not know that happened at all.
Yeah.
So those 2 things. Was there anything for you, or did I steal your one?
I think the Hindley one is also, the Ben O'Connor Hindley one is also the one where I didn't necessarily trigger that after that stage that Ben O'Connor would be angry at Hindley. Would be angry at his team for facing with Gull in the breakaway necessarily, and therefore giving Hindley more of a gap on Ben O'Connor. I didn't see that storyline necessarily coming, and I think that's the main part.
Okay, favorite character.
I think that's it. My favorite character.
Yeah, they're not humans or riders; they're characters now. Is there a Netflix show?
They actually are. Jasper Philipsen.
Oh, I'm close. Christoph Rudolph. Yeah,
it's like loving Darth Vader in Star Wars.
I can't turn away when Rudolph is like, what is this man going to do next?
And what would you compare Rudolph to towards the TV character? Because I'm comparing Jasper Philipsen in this show to Darth Vader.
No, I think Rudolph is Darth Vader, and like Philipsen is like the pawn
a stormtrooper.
He's a stormtrooper of Darth Vader. Yeah. And I always like Darth Vader. Yeah.
With rage.
No, I think he's like Luke's. I think he's like Skywalker, because Jasper Philipsen used to be like maybe a nice sprinter who wasn't doing this in 2020, and then Darth Vader. No, Darth Vader is Skywalker. No, fuck, I don't know how to.
Oh my god, Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker.
Who's Luke?
Not
Owen
Luke.
McGregor. Is Luke Owen McGregor?
Oh fucking Christ! This segment. Oh my god, no, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Whatever, man. I'm R2D. I'm R2D2.
Yeah,
a little robot.
I think R2D2 with a lobotomy or something.
Rudolph is Darth Vader. He's the best character in the show, in my opinion. What's
and I love how everybody else hates them in the show.
Everyone hates them.
I just love them.
This is what you want.
This is TV cinema.
Yeah, I thought it was great. What's your favorite? What's a quote that you thought was like, it's never going to make the trailer, it's never going to make a Twitter card, but what's a quote that you were like, that's a little bit interesting that he said that?
Why was I not prepared on this question? I don't remember.
I just thought of it then, because I'll say mine and you give you time to think. My one.
Well, yeah.
They asked Vingegaard, do you think Pogacar is 100%? And he says, yes. He is for sure at 100%, and I do not think the crash affected him, and I am glad that I can beat him at 100%. I was like, okay. Because that was the narrative a little bit, right? Like that, Poggy had the crash, and Vingegaard was like, nah, he was good. I beat him. That's how it is.
I think that's also how you need to do it. I think that's also mental psychology and also psychology towards your opponent as well, where you're saying, no need for your nonsense. I know I beat you at your best kind of vibe, you know?
But normally Vingegaard,
But not from Vingegaard.
Vingegaard's normally like, I don't know, he's magnanimous. Like maybe Poggy, it's hard to say. I really don't know. Maybe it was. But he was like, not 100%. I beat him. Happy to do so.
Yeah, I like that quote. That's true. I can't think of many quotes. Go ahead.
Poggy, he said, yeah, Vingegaard and Visma on Coulthard, they thought they could kill me. They thought I mentally cracked, and Jonas was overconfident. And then what? Like, that was good as well. I like those two I just wish there was a little bit more from the GC guys like that. I really like that stuff.
I love the back and forths in the Visma Lisa bike Jumbo Visma camp last year, where on one end you've got like super confident on one of the stage, and then the next stage when Coulthard happens, it's like, we're not winning the Tour this year. No.
Yeah, I think that was in the doco as well. After Puy de Dôme, Zeeman is like, it's done. And then half an hour later, he goes to Jonas. He's like, you did great. After he could, and that's the thing is, like, actually, they have the reputation of being like, the dramatic, but dramatic, etc. Every team is emotional. Every team, when stuff goes bad, stuff goes good, is emotional. Everyone's a human being.
There's some teams where, with Jumbo probably, because of 2020 Tour de France, where they have a little bit more trauma in the past, which might extremize. Is that a word? Extremize? Now it is. A reaction like that.
When you see Poggy's doing well, yeah. When you thought he was no good, and then he's good, and then you're like, oh no.
Mate.
And
when they saw Poggy attacking away on Coulthard, they were making the same noises as you did at the start of the episode as a marmot. That was Marijn.
Dude, marmots. I wish I'd brought Toby here, because the marmots, I think he would get on well with them. They're like burrowing. They're kind of pathetic. They're scared of everything. I think Toby would really like the marmots. Yeah, they're cute. They're furry.
Sorry, Toby, I love you.
They like the cold and the wet, and yeah, I like the marmots. They dig a little burrow just there, because I'll show you. I may as well show you. By the way, we finished wrapping up the Netflix show, but we'll give a little bit extra. But yeah,
I'm happy that this time around you actually take the camera.
Well,
because last time you tried showing something was a few years ago, and you just pointed at it without showing it.
Yeah, there's there's the Tignes, or like not Tignes, around the lake, and there's like the ski slopes up there. It's different to Andorra, it's like more groomed and everything. There's more infrastructure, more things happening, but like a bit less natural. No, Andorra rains a lot at the moment, but I went up to the rock formation there, got sunburnt to hell.
You forgot sunscreen.
Yeah, dude. Oh,
and then you were like, it's snowed enough that I don't feel bad about losing my sunscreen, is what you posted on Twitter. And then everybody was shouting at you that it actually makes it worse because it shines back on your face.
I didn't even have my sunglasses. I was walking up there. I was like, I got to like 2,500 meters. I was like, just this, and then there's snow everywhere. The snow, really, like a lot of snow up there. And I was like, I couldn't see. I was like making the marmot sounds. And then I couldn't see, the snow. And now the burn it was way worse yesterday.
When you were on top of a mountain with Visma, is sunscreen a team expense?
I fucking wish it had been. I went to the store. No, I'm down. Maybe I will. No, the store
it's
just
so
here.
Expensive.
The supermarket, at the top of the mountain, the supermarket here in Tignes, it's like 100% more expensive. I got the Nivea. I got the kids sunscreen, and it's like a small bowl like this big. It was 22 euros as a kid's. It's blue sunscreen because I like kids SPF 50. It's way better for your skin. Always get the kids SPF 50.
Kids sunscreen. Did they give it on height or something?
What do you mean?
No, I won't.
Yeah, they came in.
Joke.
They're like, sir, you can't buy the adult sunscreen. You're 100. We've seen you come in here, sir. You're too small. Here's the kids sunscreen for you. Yeah, that's what happened. And but yeah, 22 euros for a small bottle of sunscreen. But I was like, if I get another burn, I'm finished. I have to go to the hospital. So I really had no choice. But then it rained all today. So yeah, that's a little bit what's been going on. And we went for a nice walk with Matteo yesterday. And
we forgot to rate the season.
Oh, yep. 7.5.
For me, it's 8.25.
Okay, we're close. Yeah, 7.5. I think it goes to an 8 to a 9 if they change out the filler Asgren Mohoric episode and reduce the AG2R. I cannot go above 7.5 with the amount of AG2R that was in. Although it was good drama, notwithstanding. So yeah, it was very good. I'm going to watch it again. I would highly recommend to everyone to watch it, even if you are a hardcore fan, which probably you are if you listen to this show. I really think it was quite good. I think it's still ultimately very, very good for the sport. I think having this series and the fact that commercially it seems to do very, very well. Luke just brought up the data of the viewership data. It's only been out for like 2 or 3 days, but last year commercially it seemed to do very well in many countries. So it's very positive, and I hope it continues. And indeed, I think it is continuing for season 3. Any last thoughts, Benji, before we get out of here?
Not really. That's it. Bye.
All right. Thanks. See you later.